Hello, people. It's almost Halloween. We're recording the day before, so fun times. That will be one of our topics later in the show. But welcome to Athletics LLC. If you've never been, where you been? If you've been back, welcome back. So, 45 and 45. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Still working on what might be a Halloween costume. I'm not sure yet. I
Uh, FYI, the talk is ticking.
my some of my best costumes have been pulled off in the 11th hour. One year I was Nick Fury, and it was spectacular. And I literally put it together in like 4 minutes.
Jeez. All right, jumping ship. Governor, how are you tonight?
I'm really happy this weekend ended. I was really excited to get back to work.
Your regular schedule program.
The whole weekend, Jackie, my wife, just couldn't really understand why I was cranky. And yesterday I explained it to her that I cannot remember a weekend where every single team that I support got their butts handed to them. I'm talking from the NFL to college football to the Premiership. Like it was, and on top of that, my alma mater, Rice, decides to fire their coach. Man U decides to fire their coach. I mean, it was insane. It was an insane weekend. So I kind of had this look on my face all weekend, like, man,
Discontent.
yes. I mean, God forbid if I was a betting man. Oh my
Ooh,
goodness.
that would have been a
It
that
would have
might have
been
been a just an absolutely. I don't know what you do
horrible.
with that if those were all your teams that you bet on.
Six teams, six teams, every one of them.
That's tough.
Yeah. Anyway, and on top of it, the first team I've ever supported gets beat on a Hail Mary by one of the teams I hate the most. I mean,
Yeah, that was wild.
that was wild. It
That
was a
was
wild
crazy.
weekend. It was a wild weekend in
It
sport,
was.
one I choose to forget. Let's move that. Let's move on.
Clyde, how are you, sir?
You know, it's uh it's kind of the petty time of year for many reasons. We are 7 days away from the election. Tomorrow's Halloween. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
Literally.
I'm just trying to, manage it all. So here's my week next week. Baby boy turns 3 on Monday. Tuesday, we find out what country he's going to need to live in.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe he's 3.
Yeah, that is wild.
So, well, it has been a weekend. It has been a week already leading into Halloween. And you know what that means. Halloween just means there's chaos that's going to ensue and it's going to follow. So, best wishes to all of you going forward, however that cookie crumbles. But um, my mischief was managed because I was a minion today at practice. So I just tried to beat it before it happened and just make it a thing.
Yes, and let me say, Halloween is my favorite holiday. And some costumes are overdone, some are perfectly executed. Ma'am, well,
This
Yeah,
mischief was managed. My
that
my
that that
goggles,
mischief was managed
I
well.
had to paint my goggles on. And then one of the athletes was like, Coach, you should just use mason jars to make the goggles. And I was like,
There you go.
mason jar lids. And I was like, well, I'm obviously not as intuitive as you guys are, so sorry. But anyhow, thank you. Thank you. Um, well, you know, this piece of information has been on the chopping block for a while, not on the chopping block, on the block for a while. but it's really starting to hit home because now everybody's starting to really figure out all these things that it means, and conferences are starting to really put these words into how they apply to their schools. So let's talk about it a little bit deeper, and we'll probably get into even more as more conferences dwindle the numbers. But we know that the NCAA has given us roster maxes of 45 and 45 for each gender. SEC recently came out with the news that they were going to go with, for the men, 10 on cross country. I'm sorry, and 17 for cross country outside of that. SEC is going to specifically do 10 and 35 for the men, still keeping the 17 and the 45 for the women. So those of you out there who aren't reading past the initial post of these social media posts, this is pertinent to the SEC only. No one else has come out with any other verbiage yet. So 10 and 35 for the men, cross country to track and field, and then 17 to 45 for the women, cross country to track and field, pertinent to the SEC only as that parameter. So let's, how does that impact? And obviously it's all speculation because the member of the SEC is not present today. But, what do you foresee as the impact of this pertinent to that?
I'll go first. I think that the SEC went first to give marching orders to the Big 12, like in this order: the Big 12, ACC, Big 10. I say that because we all know the Big 10 is going to always err on the side of two things outside of football. They're always going to err on the side of two things. One, what is most academic, i.e., in theory, best for the student athletes in their minds. And two, what's the cheapest route that they can get away with? That's what they do every time. So the Big 10 waits for everybody else to weigh in usually, and then they lob themselves in there somewhere where it's not embarrassing. So I think the SEC went first, to be honest, to give everybody marching orders. The fact that they didn't go 45 and 45 is kind of a reprieve, I think, to the bottom half of their own conference, but definitely to the rest of the conferences. But the fact that they're going to go 35 scholarships on the men's side probably tells the Big 12 and the ACC, if you want to compete, then you probably better go at least north of 25. Because I think a lot of times people were just wondering when you're going from 12.6 and 18, 25. Look, I was in conversations 20-something years ago, and they talked about doubling all the scholarships, and I said then they'll never do it. Well, I'm wrong, which is awesome, right? I mean, it is amazing for all of the student athletes at this point, the number of scholarships that are now will be available. But I think what the SEC's numbers mean, I would be willing to bet you that there's a conference or two that go fewer scholarships on the track and more scholarship slots in cross. That's just my gut, but I could see another conference going 30 and 12 or 30 and 15 as opposed to 35 and 10. And I think the 45 and 17 is probably going to be what happens in a lot of places, because you need the female numbers to balance out football. That's just I'm not in the collegiate system, but I think that the SEC's role in this is kind of to, hey, this is what the top is going to look like. Because they usually spend the most money on athletics, right? So if that's what they're willing to spend, I think that's going to set the bar as to what others will do.
I agree with the marching orders, as you phrased it, set the table, however you want to see it. I agree with that. A conference going less on the quote unquote track and more closer to the max from the men's perspective, obviously, on the cross country feels like a very ACC thing to do.
Yes, definitely feels like a Big Ten thing for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. What it means, and I'll say it exactly the way I said it via text to one of my group chats when it was announced. My immediate response was game over. Because what the NCAA did with these quote new rules is they didn't mandate, they allowed for an increase in scholarships up to 45, right? I'm just going to focus on the track piece because people get confused with the cross country part. At the end of the day, when track season starts, if you got 17 dudes on full rides in cross country, you have to distinguish which of them are going to be on the track team. You don't get an additional 17 on top of your 45. So I'm just going to keep it in the space of track field. I said game over because what these new stipulations allow for or have created or will create is a Grand Canyon size gap between the haves and the have-nots. And it is true that in the SEC today, there are way more scholarships available, and that's great for the children. But the fact of the matter is, when all the D1 dust settles, including in some of the quote-unquote P4s, the amount of scholarships actually available is going to be significantly smaller because the majority of D1 is not going to play the 45 game. I don't think they're going to play the 35 game. I'll be shocked if anybody consistently can play the 25 game. Mid-majors won't be able to. Some schools in the power conferences won't be able to. It's already happening. So ultimately, what did I think about it? It's just game over. The people who can afford those numbers are going to have super rosters. They're going to dominate the regional spots and therefore dominate the national scoring. And that's just going to be the reality. It's the rich get richer. It's the 1% holds all the wealth. It's all of those things. And there's not really much you can do about it, except if you care to play a national level game, you got to identify what you're really, really good at. And that's probably one or two things, and dump all your resources into that and send as many kids to the show as you can.
We can't hear you,
You're
Governor.
muted, Governor.
Now you're muted.
There you go.
Nope.
Oh,
Check what your speaker.
you are literally muted.
Yeah. Check.
There you go. You should be unmuted now. Nope,
Nope.
never mind. I lied.
Hit the
All
carrot.
right, there we go.
There
There
we
you
go.
All right. I mean, the operative answer to this question is literally a resetting and a rethinking of what a full scholarship really is. And I've done my research, I guess you could say, talking to colleagues, peers in the industry, that sort of thing, presenting them with the idea of having 35 and 45 at your disposal. What does that mean from a track perspective? And right now, and I say right now, I don't think the general public or the people that are going to be making these decisions necessarily will look at scholarships as handing out candy. This is not Halloween. This doesn't change things in terms of, as a head coach, am I going to just go ahead and start bumping people up? You bring a walk-on in, they happen to perform well for you at conference. Does that mean that right away that kid gets a full scholarship and we start chipping away at 35 and 45? Well, I think there's a fundamental difference. And as long as track and field is not a head count sport, I would be hard pressed to believe that any program in the country is going to use their full complement of scholarships. I just don't see it, and again, I'm thinking in terms of how we think. And when we're recruiting and when we're going after athlete X, looking, as a head coach, you're mandating that your assistants go out and find the very best. Well, you have schools that are distance schools. You have schools that are sprint schools. You have schools that focus on the 400, focus on the multis, focus on throws. And I think, the schools that are going to do well, and I think the schools that are going to perform consistently well, are going to be a little bit more well-rounded. They're going to have a few distance kids that are good. They're going to have a few jumpers. They're going to have a few sprinters. They're going to have a few hurdlers. But 35 and 45? No. That are worthy of it. So my stance on this, until I see different, is that things will remain competitive. Now, what I see changing is that I see that you're going to find that more schools start to specialize a whole lot more. And they're going to dump their eggs into one basket, and they're going to say, this is who we are. And you're going to find that more of the P4 schools, to Clyde's point, that don't have the benefit of 35 and 45 are going to be even more hell-bent on being the best at this. And so maybe they take a chance on a couple of those kids. Some schools have 5, 6, 7 javelin throwers, right? That's not normal, but some schools do well at that, right? Other schools are going to have, a massive cross roster still, and whoever rises to the top. I mean, NC State comes to mind. I can't see a situation where they're just going to have 17 and 10 men. No, they're still going to have their numbers, but they have to figure out a way. How can I keep athlete X here? Do I redshirt athlete Y? What am I doing to make sure we keep the waves going? Right? So schools will get more and more creative, I think. But in terms of the schools that understand recruiting and understand who they are, what their DNA is, I think we're going to see much better women's teams. I think we're going to see, I think that area is an area that's going to massively improve. And I think on the men's side, I think you're going to see disparities between the 35 and single digits. I think that is the reality of men's track and field going forward. So there's going to be the disparity, again, to Clyde's point, is going to be on the men's side.
Oh, definitely much more so on the men's side.
Much more so. More so.
So you started in an interesting place that I can't really see it. And so what all of us have always done forever when cutting up scholarships, why do you cut up scholarships? So you can stretch your dollars.
Right.
There's no more incentive to stretch dollars, because at the end of the day, your roster limit is your roster limit. So
True.
if you end up with 45 athletes and you've only spent 10 of your scholarships, who gives a shit? Like, that's not an actual advantage, because you're going to have to cut everybody.
So I'll stick a pin in that right now, and and I'm going to use Alston as an example, okay? And the programs that have offered Alston for everybody, right?
Yeah.
They have run into issues with kids with this kid isn't good enough, but we can't get rid of him. It's not as simple as that because this kid has now something to lose. Now imagine if that kid is on a full. Like that's the issue that I'm thinking about in terms of, you
Fair.
know, the potential headaches that come along with, all right, we gave you a shot, right? You're in year one. You know, we had it and we gave it to you, but this is not working out. Now, unless you know, the rules are changing now, where as a head coach, you can now call that kid into the office and say, we gave it a shot, man, but it's time for you to move on, right? Which a lot of us are not mandated to do. We don't have that ability. Um, I can see a situation where coaches are not going to do that, even though they have it at their disposal. You know, a question that I've asked multiple, you know, head coaches, are you going to feel pressured to use your allotment of it just because you have it? And the answer by and large has been no. No. It's not as simple as I have all of this loot. I'm sitting on this war chest. Does that mean you have to use it? It does not. And I think that's the fundamental difference between football, that is going to just throw money all over the place, and if they have 20 guys just sitting there that, you know, they just keep that rotation going. I don't see the same thing happening in track.
See, okay. I hear what all of you are saying, but I just find it interesting. And the only reason I say that is this: like, the only thing that, as a college coach, the only thing that ever stopped me from recruiting was literally running out of money and running out of yeses from either my staff or my boss.
Right.
If I have access to 35 scholarships, I am literally planning on recruiting the top 25 people in probably every event that we can coach well. And that's nationally and internationally. Like, the first thing I would need to do if I was a head coach right now, the first thing I would need to do is probably drop a meet and take all of that money and put it in recruiting, because I want 10 kids on campus, or however we're going to recruit, because I know that's different now too, as often as humanly possible, because I do want to use all of the money. I'm not going to throw it away, right? But I'm probably going to tell every single person on my staff, do not bring me a developmental person and ask me to give them money. So we have roster spots, right? If we only have, like, I mean, we'll get perfect example. If we have 35 fulls and I have 45 roster spots, there can be 10 walk-ons on this team. I'm not putting 25% into anybody. So they're either going to be good enough to get a full, or they're probably not going to get much of anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so my mandate to my whole staff would be, the limitations that you at once could legitimately come in my office and tell me you had do not exist any longer, because there is enough money now for everyone on this staff to eat. If you're not eating, it's because you're not working. And if you're not working, I am probably going to find another person who will. Because at the end of the day, again, this is if you're trying to win a national championship, right? If you're in some place, and I think this, if you're someplace that's giving you 35 men and 45 women, if you're someplace that's getting that, you should be trying to win a national championship, because conference championships make no sense at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So if we got 35 and 45, if we're sitting on money, unless we had a rash of injuries or we just get crushed in recruiting, like we got told no by 45 kids, I'm probably looking at my whole staff like, what the hell is wrong with y'all?
Right. And there's a lot that goes into that, you know, and I'm not, by no means am I doubting any staff or saying that, it's impossible. But I just think that the mentality is going to have to change. Right now, I could see a situation where distance is getting the majority of those scholarships. And the reason being is that anybody that can have a cross kid that can double back for indoor and outdoor, I mean, you are doing some serious stuff, right? If you can get those kids that are good enough, right? Now, as far as indoor and outdoor track, I mean, I think it's a simple, if you take a gander at the schools that have consistently competed for national championships, how big are those teams really?
Just
Right?
under 40. Yep.
Well, they
How-
used to be
Yes.
5 to 9 kids.
And that's
exactly.
but
Now
that's
they're
my
going to be
but
double.
that's my point, right?
Right.
That's at 12.6.
Yeah.
So like let's just do simple math.
Triple.
If you just if they just work, right? If
Mhm.
they work at the same rate, if you had 6 to 8 kids at the national meet on 12.6, then you should have 18 to 24 kids at the national meet on 35, right? Well, there ain't that many points. So at the end of the so at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the staffs who've been doing that, those points are going to come off of somebody else's ledger.
Right.
Right. So I think that winning a national championship is probably going to be a whole lot harder. You're going to probably you probably got to score a whole lot more points. And to be completely frank, to Clyde's point, I think there are going to be more track and field scholarships at fewer schools.
Yes, this is true.
I think that's what the landscape is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be fewer teams that are actually playing track.
So does the idea of a really, really good recruiter at a smaller school, how effective is that person going to be as opposed to someone at a bigger school that has problems beating that smaller school coach? You understand what I'm saying?
The smaller school is going to lose that recruiting coach probably faster than they would lose their best athletes.
All right.
That's right.
So so there's going to be a premium now on coaches that have the ability to go out and get the very best with very little. There's going to be a premium on those coaches because you bring that kid into that coach into your office as a head coach and say, hey, you were working with 2 scholarships over at school X. I got 10 for you. I got 10. Here's your mandate. Go out and get them. And that again, that's a different mentality now, and I think it's going to be a change. And to your point also, now that you can have more than 6 coaches, 7 coaches, 8 coaches on your staff.
That part.
Yeah.
Right? So how many event coaches are going to be willing to take 6 figures to go somewhere and just recruit? Because that's a reality too.
There are worse lives.
There are definitely worse lives.
For real.
Yeah. I saw a lot of I don't know, surprise when that announcement came out. That's exactly what I felt, where I felt it would land for the power schools. I didn't, as long as Title IX is still a part of this conversation,
yes,
you're going to have less men than women, period.
Yep.
After.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's just arithmetic. You know, I mean, we're in the Mountain West. There's all kind of rumors about what is and what isn't. When the dust settles, I think a conference like ours, the size of ours, will probably settle on something in the 35 to 25 range. Just because that almost feels feasible for certain people.
And you're talking about roster size or total scholarships? Which one?
Well, both, right? Like, because the way it is the NCAA has said you can have 45, but the conferences are making the decisions of how to set their tables.
Yeah.
I don't see mid-major conferences setting their tables 45-45 or even 45-35, knowing that 90% of the schools in said conferences can't pay that anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
They're going to look at it from at our championship in our meet, we want to have fairness or some kind of equal playing field. So
Some parity. Yeah.
right. So most of y'all can probably figure this piece out. So that's where we're going to set it.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a very conference-y thing to do, right? Trying to win your conference meet, no matter what the scholarship limitations or increases, is still a very, very different game than trying to score at nationals.
Right.
And it always will be. So some people, I would say the majority of people in our profession, the majority of head coaches, care more about shoot harder for, spend more time, and have bonuses in their contract structured for how they do at the conference meets,
Mm-hmm.
which personally I've never been a fan of. I've always had the mentality of, I want to shoot at the top and the conference will take care of itself if we're actually worthy of being that good.
Right.
I know I'm in the minority with that mentality. So, it's easier for a small school to find 5 to 10 people who can get themselves to a national meet than it is having a balanced team that can win a low-level conference meet where no one goes to nationals.
Well, the other thing that's popping into my head, I mean, God knows, I mean, whoever decides to write this new new rule book, the Big Ten, as far as I know, isn't changing all the extra events at the Big Ten indoor meet, right? So
Why would they?
exactly. So, right now indoors is what, 28, 45 and 45? Is that the limit
For the
for the
meet
squad
itself,
limit?
Squad,
Yes.
28.
Right. So, when you add is it the 6? There's a 600, right?
600 and the
600,
and the 1K.
1,000.
And there's 1,000, right?
Yeah, they have 600 meters and 1,000 meters.
So,
Go
again,
get you a 600-meter specialist out of JUCO, baby.
exactly.
Well, the Big 12 has 600 yards.
They have
Let that
600
wash over
yards.
you.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And
That's
a
an-
1K.
That's another set of lines on the 200-meter oval.
Yeah.
Yep.
You only
Yep.
see those marks on like 4 tracks in the country.
So, but yeah, I mean, when you add in Oregon, you add in USC, I mean, what is the Big Ten meet going to look like? It's unfathomable. I mean, the Big 12 meet, I mean, you've added damn near half the Pac-12. What is that
Yeah.
going to look like? So, I mean, I think schools are going to have to make some really hard decisions. Like, what are we aiming for here?
Yep.
Right? Are we trying to take our 5 or 6 to the national meet and finish top 20? Or are we trying to really go up against the big dogs at the conference meet, indoor and outdoor? Like, you're going to have to pick and choose unless you are majorly funded like 35 and 45, where I don't think there's no excuse. There really is no excuse year after year after year.
The unthought of crazy part to all this is like, if you're at the bottom, if you are usually in the bottom third of a Power 5, which is now Power 4 conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially on the men's side, you always kind of had an excuse, right? You have 12.6 and the top's really okay. If you're at the bottom of said Power 4 conference and they give you 35 scholarships on the men's side and 45 on the women's side, you don't have an excuse for not competing for the conference title.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you can go get enough bodies.
Yeah, you can.
And that is going to be interesting, right? That is going to be interesting. We have bullied over big league. What are your thoughts on this? That was not intentional. Sorry.
It's
You got to hit us with the voice one time, Big League. You got to hit us with the voice.
I can't do it.
Oh, you can't do it.
No, I can't. No. I don't know how to do. I was trying all day today. I think I think it is interesting to see how the conferences fall in line. You know, if they do, how they do, going along that lines. In regards to roster management, so you guys haven't gone as deep as I've thought and had conversations about. You know, are the conferences, are the institutions going to regulate? Do your 10 and 17 have to all transfer over to in and out?
No, they absolutely do not.
Mm-mm.
But are your schools going to regulate that? And are your conferences going to regulate that? You know what I mean? Because they can. So
I mean, they could.
they can. I mean, all of it's open season at this point, right? And so
That's true.
how does that play out? Right? Because then we're really creating a divide. Because then I can have 10 separate bodies, or call it 3 bodies, that only go over to my in and out roster from my 10 or my 17, right? On that part. Then, my brain went way left after this. And with staying in compliance with the NCAA rules, but knowing also what our universities and institutions offer, how does this play into what club, track and field, and cross country looks like on your campuses? And do you start to hide, quote unquote, hide athletes there, allowing them to develop?
Yeah.
People will try to play that very sinister and twisted game. I got a scenario for you, not to call out any one particular school, but we all know that these people do exist. The coaches who are hardcore all in on distance and that's it. You can have your 17 and take your 45 and go 1,500 and up.
Yeah.
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 100%. That's gonna happen.
That's
Somebody's
gonna
do
happen.
that. Somebody's gonna do it.
There's no rule against that. You know what I mean?
So, somebody is gonna go full-fledged distance mafia. 100%.
Well, I'm gonna go the opposite way, because this used to be a thing. You used to be able to hide, or I shouldn't say hide, a sprinter if you needed them to get in shape in the fall. That used to be a thing. Put them on your roster.
Sure.
Right?
But at the end of the day, comes track season, you have to declare 45 humans
Absolutely.
track roster.
Absolutely.
But yes.
But from a scholarship piece, from a purely scholarship piece, I mean, I feel like I get the folks that are thinking long and hard about this are going to find some really creative inroads.
Yeah.
To put together the best roster for indoor and outdoor. I was thinking of something that just crossed my mind. Anyway, well, I'll remember it.
Hey, I would happily take Christopher Huffins, decathlete extraordinaire, and park him on the cross country roster for a year and a half while he learned how to run the 15. You know what I mean? Like, I would totally do that. I would totally do that.
45. He couldn't help it. He couldn't help it, man. He couldn't help it. He had to go there.
It's a good idea.
They only take shots at you when you're on the top.
I know.
So here's my thing, right? Because there are quite a few, and we all know I'm not a cross-country distance coach by no means. So don't shoot me. This is just what I'm seeing and whatnot. For those, there was quite a few, call them cross-country coaches, but distance coaches at that, who were really up in arms about the number being 10. And you can't outfit a real team, and that's just not enough, and there's no way that's sustainable.
Yeah, I don't understand those people at all. That makes no sense to me.
It didn't make sense to me, and that's fine if someone wants to take the time to find a day that I can actually listen to you and understand it. But when you can only count 5, you can bring 10.
It's double the humans across the line that you need. I don't see what the problem is.
Right. And so, and I get the principle of, they run up really far, they've got a lot of miles on them, they're not as durable. But then, okay, doesn't that call for you to coach a little more strategically? And that's a question, right? Because then you can't guesstimate and be like, you're 60 miles a week now. Now you're 80 miles a week. And I get it, the men do run a longer race, so they do have to put more miles on, but then management.
But now you can't run a different roster at the conference meet than you do at the regional meet,
Mm-hmm.
and then mix and
Yeah.
match the best group at the national meet.
No.
Right. So then, and that's what I mean. Like you
You gotta get
you
out
got
there
a
and work a
coach,
little bit.
right? And so, and if I'm wrong, if I'm way off base and I've missed a whole big thing, then please politely and nicely tell me. You don't have to yell at me. But like I don't know, that came across my thoughts when I saw some of the
No, what I
comments.
just said is they're big. That's what they're complaining about,
Well,
right? They can't.
so but hold on, you're telling me that, not
Yes,
them, and that's my
you're
point.
right.
Is
You're right. I'm sorry.
you're speculating. You're not giving them the ability. But anyways, so that part, the other part that I was thinking about in regards to this is, I asked the question. So then what's more coveted, the roster slot or the scholarship?
Oh boy. Clyde is it's
Well, right. So, I mean, without giving away all the donut holes, like it depends on the program you're in, right? Because
Mhm.
it depends on whose wallet you've got and what monogram is on the outside of it.
Thanks for jogging my memory, Big League. I remember now
Good,
what I wanted to talk about.
good. But then, if you've only got 3 graduating, but you've got 5 scholarships and only those 3 slots,
Mm.
are you going to try to use it all? And obviously you can't 1.5 them or anything like that. But like, do you let that last slot just sit a little bit open because you can? Or you just try to use as much of that 5 scholarships with those 3 slots left?
Mm.
Or,
They're gonna do what they always do. If somebody needs to get rid of somebody, then they're gonna get rid of them. Like that's just that game is never gonna change. There's no way to legislate that part of the game out.
well, no. What I'm saying is like you're graduating 5.
Uh-huh.
Oh no, I said that backwards. You're graduating 3. You have 5 scholarships available. You had leftover money from the year before, whatever it is, right? So are you going to try to maximize and use as much of those 5 scholarships as possible? Or are you going to leave some meat on the bone because maybe you have more slots opening later?
It depends on if Kareem Street Thompson and Marissa Chu are gonna sign to run for me or not. Because if they are, then I'm gonna probably bounce somebody.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
what actually happens. And I don't it happened at 12.6, it happened at 18. It damn sure is gonna happen now. Like
Mhm.
I've never understood why people play the coy game like, oh, that doesn't happen. It happens on every campus, at every level, all the time.
We don't do it.
Stop it. Marissa Chu.
You think I'm that nice that I would keep somebody that didn't have to?
I don't think you're that nice. I think that if you absolutely and you listen, assistants are in a different situation.
Yeah.
If there is a boss, man or woman, that wants somebody out for
Mhm.
whatever reason, there are pathways to get them out. There always have been, there always will be. That is just the truth of the matter. I mean,
Right.
we could do a whole topic, take the names out of it on creative ways that coaches have found to get people off of their roster after their admins say, nah, you can't cut nobody.
Right.
like,
This
come
is
on.
true.
So I just it happens all the time. All the time.
So
Governor, what did I jog your memory of?
yeah, so the issue at hand, from a recruiting standpoint, is the very clear fact that outside of NIL, there will be no more Alston. And that levels the playing field in a major way for the schools that don't have access to it to begin with. So incentivizing, do you want to be at a major player or do you want to be at a small fry school? Right? Does it, again, does it still come down to the ability of the assistant coach to out recruit the other coach full against full. And there is some, what I would say is like, from the standpoint of fairness, if you will, however you want to call it, I feel like it's going to level the playing field on an individual basis. Pure numbers versus numbers, obviously there are going to be more big time players at the bigger schools. But when it comes down to that kid that says, you know what, I like you, and I like the fact that you are going to cater to me, and you're going to give me what I need in terms of being a great athlete. And I don't necessarily want to be on that never-ending train over there. That is a real thing that I find that the big schools, it's not going to be as easy as they think.
The governor is a wildly optimistic and good human being, and it's why we love and adore him so much.
Okay.
For the vast majority,
okay,
in today's culture,
yes,
you can be the most elite of recruiter with the best mouthpiece on the planet, and literally a top 3 coach at what you do, and you can produce the results. At some point, you're all going to meet in the same place, and your kids are going to walk into a building and realize all the things that they don't have.
Right.
And they're going to dip. And that exit is going to be faster than it ever was before, because there's so much more space now where there wasn't before. That has always been the case. And now it's just going to happen at a faster clip, because the fact of the matter is there's certain things that, you just can't do. Like, I wish that young people today valued their production and their education, both on and off the track, over the shiny toys and the big labels. But they don't. For every one that does, there's 9 that don't.
Right.
And that is only going to get worse.
You agree 45 and 45? Because I think
not.
from my
This is how
standpoint,
much worse I think it's going to get. I'm a fair play guy, and I'm a honest day's wage for honest day's work. But if I was at a school that had 35 scholarships, I would leave 5 scholarships open specifically for the portal, for people that were really good at schools that can't sustain them.
Okay.
So yes, I think, unfortunately, Clyde is, you might win the battle. So I do agree with both of you, I guess. You might, because your ability to recruit is still going to happen, right? So there are still going to be kids that belong at the big school that are at the small school. The only issue is, with the portal and 35 scholarships, you don't have to wonder if they're going to stay at the small school. They are for sure going to leave.
That's right.
Right? Like, kids are going to be choosing 4-year schools like junior colleges. Like, we're going there to develop for a year, get my money up, and we out.
Okay. All I'm saying is that up until next year, there was a financial incentive outside of NIL for that kid to leave. That will no longer be there. Right? So it's obviously, kids will be kids. Kids are going to still see the bright lights. They're going to have their dream school. They're going to have that school they've always been to, they wanted to go to. They work their way up at the smallest school. They're now beating their chest. And yeah, the phone is going to ring. The inbox is going to start inboxing, and all of that is going to happen. Okay. I just feel like there's more there's more parity now, and there's a lot less of the, you know, big brother against little brother from the standpoint of what's in the scholarship. What is it? What more are you going to get? A nicer track, a nicer stadium, right?
Yes.
A nicer weight
And
room.
and
Yes.
a lot of kids are, I understand what you're saying, but a lot
Yeah.
of kids are still going to feel like today's generation of
They've
kids, and
arrived.
today's generation of kids, I hate to sound like the old man, get off my lawn, but today's
Mhm.
generation of kids have FOMO worse than any other generation in the history of generations.
Right.
So if they're at a school and they're producing and they're on a full scholarship and they have no bills, and mom and dad are not broke,
Mhm.
but they go to the national meet and they're the one of two people at their school at the
Yep.
meet, they're probably going to bounce to go to a school that had 12 people there
12
or
people there.
14 people there because they feel like that's where they belong.
Yeah.
I'll take it a step further. Yes, the better facilities. Yes, the bigger weight room, even though all the equipment in there is the same.
Mhm.
Forget all of that. It's not even that. It's the, like, to what 45 and 45 said, it's the belonging to,
Mhm.
right? I want to be identified with that,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's as simple as, okay, if you're, and we all do it, depending on where you live, right? If you're a small, mid-major market team, you will try to find one or two meets in your calendar to line up and go get a good race, go to Mount Sac, go to Florida, go Texas Relays, whatever it is you do. And your kids may not notice it then, but it's when they arrive to the preliminary round or when they arrive to Eugene, and hey, the governor's school and my school, we're all Under Armour, coach. Why they got a whole kit I ain't never seen before?
Mhm.
They told us they got that kit when they got off the private jet this morning. We was
Yep.
on Southwest. Like, yeah, what you want me to do about that? Go beat them. And then you beat them. They want the private jet and the kits.
Right.
Like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and there's no, and today's culture is more clout chasing than ever before. And that's always going to be there.
The funny part though is, I think where the mid majors that are smart are going to thrive is on the power four kids that were over recruited.
Mm.
The bounce back kids that needed
Or
attention more than,
underproducing.
yes, the bounce
Yeah.
back kids that needed more attention and less managing.
Mhm.
Right? You're going to end up with some kids that used to go to insert big school here. So it's going to, I think it's going to be a lot harder on the front side, right? And I think it might be easier on the back side.
Okay.
I've had this conversation with parents since the portal has been invented. But I literally had it yesterday with a parent. They asked me about the transfer portal and, why we don't end up with that many transfer portal kids. And I said, it's really very simple. If you're good enough to be signed by major program X and it doesn't work out, those kids, when they hit the portal, they're not looking for a better coach situation. Usually they say they are.
Mhm.
They're looking for a new home, but in the power group X.
Right.
They don't want to step down to what could be a better coaching situation in a smaller environment. No. I belong up here. So I'm going to go from here to here to here. And then the mid-major kids who go in there, they're looking for the upgrade. Like if a kid left my program and somehow ended up in the governor's program, that'd probably be a really smart move on their part, moving from quality coach to quality coach. But if you're leaving the governor's program, or you're leaving a program like ours, you trying to go up the escalator.
Mm-hmm.
Coach be damned. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the trend. And to your point, yes, every now and then you can get you a bounce back, but most of the major player bounce backs end up bouncing back to a different major player.
Mm-hmm. What you got, you?
So I know what Clyde is saying, this aspect, and I hear it, but it is a process. So hear this out. So from the conversations I've had, and from what I personally think as well, with these roster maxes, you're not going to take as many chances on the walk-ons. You're not going to take as many developmentals. You're not going to, have these things that you're going to take the chance on, because they now keep a spot locked up, of which isn't so easy and immediate to get rid of,
Mm-hmm.
become vacant, right? And so what transfer portal wise, going back to what you're just saying, we've got these grad transfers, we've got these portal people in there, and they're looking for these opportunities that better match what they're looking for in their college experience, right? That's the blanket generic email that we all get. But all I want to do to them is say, yeah, you should probably stay there, or bring it down a notch, turn down the intensity, because there's no more room for that. Yeah, we can take you on. It'll be all right, because you'll be, one and dones are a little less risky, but that's still a roster spot, right? Because if you take it on in the fall, that means it doesn't exist in the spring for that potential other portal person.
Well, to your point, I almost feel like we could do a segment on what recruiting is and what recruiting is going to be going forward. Because
now you got to recruit. Now you got to recruit kids to your school. You got to re-recruit kids to your school. Then you have to re-recruit kids to stay at your school. And then you got to recruit kids from somebody else's school.
Well, you're missing one. You've got to recruit kids, like I'd say from our standpoint, knowing that a year or two, you might be seeing that kid again in the portal.
Yeah.
And I remember, talking to compliance. This was years back. And then, the simple phrase, hey, so if it doesn't work out,
oh yeah,
right? What is that? Well, every compliance department is like, well, that's cheating, and this, and that's tampering, and this and that. In this day and age,
that's necessary.
That's necessary.
Literally like taking a
That
breath.
that door remains open.
Let me put this boomerang in your pocket real quick. It might bring you back.
Right?
And the idea that a coach could get in their feelings these days about losing a recruit. Come on, man. Come on.
Like, you ain't never been that important, G.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's literally another one.
So like I feel like there almost needs to be, and I don't think we've ever had a referendum or a symposium on recruiting. I mean, obviously we tend to hold on to what we do, what our idiosyncrasies are, and that sort of thing. But come on, like if you're thinking that you're going to approach recruiting the same way you did 10 years ago, I'm sorry. You are way out of the loop.
Anything you knew about recruiting prior to the pandemic, you can burn.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
Recruiting has changed twice since the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Right? Because now you have grad transfers, which are going to become less and less now that all the COVID kids are finally gone, just about. right? But now you got grad transfers, and you can transfer multiple times without penalty, and you got NIL money. So like, yeah, anything you used to know about recruiting, I'll tell you this. I'll say this, and then Chu will hand it back to you. The one thing you better know, no matter where you're at, the one thing you better know is what kind of kids are successful at your place,
Mm-hmm.
and you better know where to get them routinely.
Yep. You better know, you better have an idea of what questions to ask. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Because you
So-
have to recruit kids that will work at your school with yourself or your staff.
Mm-hmm.
I think logistically beyond that, you have to know it's coming on your roster,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
right? Like there have been times when you didn't have to pay attention. You didn't have to be so poignant on it. Like you kind of could have a rough estimate in your head, like, yeah, these people are leaving, but it didn't matter if they actually left or not, right? I mean, they had to because of eligibility, but it didn't really matter. Now it really matters.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're playing this false number because you have no clue who's going to get in the portal if there's anybody. So now you're holding on to these things and trying to think sparingly when there could be 3 conspiring to get in the portal. And then you have nothing to worry about. Now you're scrambling to find more things, right? So
I mean, this is how much recruiting has changed. And in the AP top 20, there are 3 football teams without any transfers: Army, Navy, and Dabo's Clemson Tigers. Everybody else in the entire country is playing that game.
can you do that at Army and Navy?
I don't think you can transfer in. You can transfer out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
transferring in. That's
Yeah, I don't think you can transfer in.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, like I said, and when we started this topic isn't done. And it's not because I said this on Facebook. It's not that the dust is going to settle. The dust is never going to settle on this because it's way too new. This landscape is so uncharted that, like, I don't know, pick your favorite settler and try to find their kin, because that's only going to help you get to like the next step. So with that, we'll come back and when other conferences divulge what their numbers are going to be, or when there are different strategies or things, we'll definitely bring this back up. But in honor of the celebration that will be happening tomorrow for many people, Halloween, I would like each of you to give me your best Halloween tradition. So whether you've done it yourself or you've seen it, what do you feel is your best Halloween tradition?
My favorite Halloween tradition is people watching,
Yes.
because there is no better holiday for good sightseeing of humanity.
Humanity.
It's humanity. It's
I
humanity
don't know.
at its best or worst, depending on your perspective.
That's what I mean by humanity.
For me, there was nothing better than planning not my costume. Sometimes I'm dressed up, sometimes I'm not. But where am I going to go to watch the Halloween shenanigans? It's amazing.
What about you guys?
Oof, Halloween shenanigans, man.
No, Halloween traditions.
No, I'm laughing in my head at Clyde's description of Halloween shenanigans. As weird as it is, like all the costumes and all that other stuff, God knows I don't eat that much candy. Like, sure, I'll do some of that. I actually like the creative foods that get made at and for Halloween parties to be made, like, you know, hot dogs made to look like fingers and
Mm-hmm.
think what?
Well, that's my tradition. My
Oh,
mummy dogs.
Creative
well,
cuisine.
so yeah, mine is
Yeah.
just creative cuisine, and I'll shut up.
Dang.
She gave you,
Did you
he
hear
gave you
my
a shout out. Give
did
you
you
a
hear
shout
my
out.
thunder just roll right by? Golly.
That's
Oh boy. Well, it's simple. You like making it, he loves eating it. I mean, it's that
I
simple.
mean,
Um, so for me, um, it's watching my wife go through her selection process of what she's going to be, because 99.9% of the time that involves me, that involves the family. We are going to do something together, right? We're going to be connected somehow,
And it's when it.
and it is what it is. Um, lately we've
I've
had
been wanting
some.
to go as the Incredibles.
Oh, really?
So I want to do it so bad.
Oh, that would be so cool. Lately we've had some friends that live across the highway from us that have their Halloween party like a week earlier. And so it's a double dose.
Yeah.
There's a frenetic rush to get our family, to the house in full garb, doing the whole deal. We've done steampunk, we've done gangster family, we've done I mean this year we did Beetlejuice.
Oh,
Um
fun.
yeah. By the way, if you haven't seen the newest one, go see it. I think they did a good job. They did a good job. Um, but yeah, watching her go through her creative process is something to behold.
So I didn't grow up with a whole bunch of traditions for Halloween. Like having an immigrant mom, like she didn't get it. She was like, "What are you talking about? I've had to pay for something to make it look not like you and like it." So there wasn't a whole bunch. I didn't grow up doing a lot. Um, but as 45 and 45 alluded to, um, I don't know, when my kids were younger, um, I mean, obviously they're super easy. They're called mummy dogs. You literally take like the croissant crescent rolls, and then you just roll the hot dogs in it, and it looks like a mummy. I mean, it looks like a what's it called? Whatever, the covered hot dogs, but not a corn dog, not a corn dog.
It's like a
But
pig in a
anyways,
blanket.
yeah, pig in a blanket. There you go. And but they're so good, and I end up eating like 10 of them. But you know, who judges on Halloween? So yeah, I know that's my favorite tradition. Um, let's see if our palates have changed at all, because candy's changed. Not that we've changed, candy has changed. We've revealed what our favorite candy is before, but what is your favorite candy this year?
Oh,
Jesse loves
I-
playing detective.
I don't even like candy like that.
But
But
is there a Halloween candy that you're like, that's mine?
no, but if I'm gonna eat something, it'd be Snickers, mini or
Mm.
otherwise.
King size Snickers.
Hmm.
so for me, I mean, not that anyone has the class to hand these out at Halloween, but score bars, oh man,
Oh,
Ooh.
oh.
See, they don't
love
even
score
make a
bars.
miniature anymore. Remember
I
when they used to make a
know,
miniature?
I
They don't do it
know.
anymore.
I mean, if I ever went to a house and my daughter walked back and she had score, I'd be like, "Sir, I'd like to shake your hand," you know, because it's not something that I eat all the time, but
No,
man, they're so good.
that's Whoppers for me. That's my
Whoppers.
version of a
Oh,
Whopper.
okay. Okay.
Loved those. Love them. But I only eat them around the Halloween time because they come in the mixtures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't ever really buy them. So mine's Whoppers. That's my favorite. 45, what do you?
King size Snickers.
Oh yeah, you said that. Just kidding. All right. Well, now you all know how to bribe us when you see us next.
That's right.
So
SKOR.
yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
It's dark brown, blackish,
That's right.
reddish, burnt orangish coloring. Toffee. Oof. I think I'm gonna have to go find a bar. Go find one. So, well, with that said, y'all, right now, score is 7-6 Dodgers,
Hmm.
0 outs, runners on first. We'll see how this one ends because it could be the end.
Jesus.
With that being said, I know I can't believe I said that, but they're the NL, so I gotta go for it. But literally, my skin is crawling saying that, like I'm smiling at the Dodgers. So, have a great Halloween tomorrow. Enjoy the weekend. We're that much closer to our opening meets. So, with that being said, we'll talk to you all later. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.